Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to Season 3 Part 2. Just wanted to greet you guys by just saying sit back and relax. You're in for a treat. So we begin. They're not there. Takage worriedly glanced toward the magic hero, Majestic, who she was participating in a work study with. The slim-bodied man sighed before levitating upward on his energy ring to get out of their hideout spot. So it's as I suspected, quickly contacting others and informing them of the situation. The pro hero was making quick work of the problem. His temporary student sidekick watched how he worked meticulously and smiled before mentally prepping herself to work even harder. At that moment, they were investigating an information leak they received. It mentioned that the leader of the League of Villains was planning to meet with the head of the Liberation Army, and that was bad news for everyone. The worrisome report then became more confusing as both Shigaraki and the army leader were not where they agreed to be. What could have happened? Lizardy, snapping out of her thoughts, Takage faced the hero who updated her on the situation. As it turns out, before the army, Tamura Shigaraki was supposed to meet with the young leader of the Shai Hasekai. You mean the Yakuza? Aren't they staying out of trouble though? Majestic shook his head, gently running a finger over his goatee as he did. They're becoming hectic lately, and by the sounds of it, the League has been absorbed by them. What? Takage could hardly believe what she heard. That man-child, under someone else's rule. Really, either way, it only motivated her to work harder, as their next step was to trace where the League was. Toga Himiko. The greenette was pushed to the floor by the heavy-breathing blonde, desperately trying to drive a knife into his chest. Yes, that's me, Toga Himiko. Oh, I'm so glad to see you, Izuku. The blade shone darkly with lustful intent, but the scarred hands managed to push the rock-lock imposter off with a heavy shove. The cat-like girl just nonchalantly cartwheeled to the side and Izuku got up, his body barely unscathed. Oh, and here I thought we could carry on from last time. Izuku glared at her, but she only grinned back. Golden eyes locked onto his body. So the heroes are here, huh? Izuku, what do you want? Toga casually took a step back as she looked the greenette up and down. Help. I didn't think the League of Villains would support mere Yakuza. Sir Night-Eye looked at the unconscious Rappa and blabbering twice. That Yakuza's useless. None of your business. We didn't want to do this either. It made little to no sense, and with the urgency of the situation, Night-Eye quickly pulled out his personally made high-density seals. My mask, with a controlled flick of his wrists. The pro hero shot the finger weapons and tore Twice's mask as a warning. Get high, before Night-Eye could order his men to capture the League member. The man suddenly started to shake frantically before a wall lifted between them, cutting their contact. Anyway, we need to locate Midoriya and Rocklock. Find a way to break down that wall. My mask, this is bad. Landing on the floor in a whimpering heap, Twice grabbed at the tattered material and started to mumble into the depths of his unstable mind. I'm gonna split. All right, I'm gonna tear apart. No, you won't. I need to wrap it up. There, Toga wrapped her pink handkerchief around the contradicting man and smiled. Her two elongated, sharp canine teeth were somehow showing a pitying and kind smile to the man before her. Once you're wrapped, you become one, right? Toga. Izuku watched the scene from a distance in confusion as his thoughts ran in circles. Why are the League here? Why is she doing this? What does she need help with? The blonde girl sat on the floor and turned her back to the greenette. She was making it blatantly obvious she didn't want him to come any closer and was holding that judgment on trust. Not trust built from being on the same page, but trust that they were enemies. We're doing all this to help them too. Those organized crime guys are meanies. They're being forced. But Izuku was confused because the League was an illegal organization and would most likely turn the legal Yakuza into wanted criminals by associating with them. Although I guess they only have a few members left since we arrested a lot. The forest green eyes continued to observe the two League members who suddenly started to insult the Shai Hasekai. This is why the Yakuza are dying out. They really are useless, so they haven't cooperated. Then, both Toga and Twice were looking upward as they continued to insult the Yakuza, and the greenette quietly made his way around the wall. He wanted to see what they saw without being caught. There must be a reason for this. So sad. This group is helpless. I see. The wall fluctuated as a hidden Yakuza suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream. It was now impossible to miss the death-lusting eyes that almost drooled out his intention. Crush and kill them all. Smash. Izuku didn't hesitate as he rocketed himself upward and dragged the Yakuza member out of his hiding spot, roughly throwing him to the floor and kicking the man's stomach to knock him. The greenette huffed at the dazed member. Thank you, Izuku. Toga grinned as she and Twice headed toward a broken structure. My opinion of you really had changed. I really do like you. The walls slightly moved back to normal as the Yakuza fell unconscious. Golden eyes settled on the greenette who had listened to her despite being the enemy and slowly exhaled. She found it somewhat amusing that her opponent was willing to help her. Then again, we did have the same target this time. Sticking a tongue out at the immobile man, She let out a satisfied smile. We never wanted to be under Overjerk's watch anyway. The lips then dramatically curved upward into a more Cheshire cat grin as Toga intoxicatingly blushed before waving at Izuku. So get rid of these meanies for us, okay? I'll come play with you next time. Look out. The wall bust open as Ryukyu headbutted it down, since she had wrapped up the villain above so quickly with her work-study students. They could come down to aid the fight. Kodai stepped forward to shrink the debris as Yanagi levitated the now light blocks of dirt away. Sir Night-Eye and Eraserhead ran onto the scene and Izuku quickly explained the situation. The now conscious real Rocklock confirmed his story, and the one homeroom teacher contemplated whether to take Izuku out of the fight or not. After all, he was a target previously, and the fact that Toga had helped him made it more suspicious. However, he decided to go with his instincts, who said the incident was a fluke, and let the boy stay in the fight. The greenette beamed briefly before his eyes slanted with a serious glare. There was now one and only one concern on his mind. I will definitely, leaving Rocklock with the police and having everyone else run after the ever-accelerating Izuku. The greenette burst through the wall, his glowing eyes fixed onto the scene before him. An angry Overhaul with his hand to the floor had his face covered in hives. A disheveled Mirio who was on his last ounce of strength. And last of all, Iri. The greenette glared at Chisaki as his body bolted forward. The clenched fist was tightly wound back and rushed to make heavy contact with its target. Save her. The sound of flesh to cracked floor echoed out as Quirk-erasing eyes set their glare to the fallen Yakuza. Night-Eye. Secure those who need treatment. All Might's former sidekick instantly recognized the other unconscious Yakuza present before the foreseeing eyes landed on his pupil. Lemillion was on his last legs but still protecting the young child who sat behind him. Mirio, pulling his student and the child into a hug, he whispered words of encouragement and relief. It's fine now. You are amazing. You are amazing, Mirio. Overhaul desperately slammed the ground to no avail as his quirk refused to work, and the greenette quickly analyzed the situation. Aizawa ran forward to attack the still man when, get up, Chrono, Eraserhead. A strip as sharp as the edge of a knife blasted forward, and the underground hero managed to dodge, but just barely, even though it was barely a scratch. Aizawa felt his movements immediately increase. A lorry-sized bolt came hurtling down and crashed near the temporarily quirkless Yakuza. Debris rushed into the air as Ryukyu flew people to safety. Izuku ran forward and managed to land another hit to the leader's body. The sound of something cracking followed by a thud accompanied the quickly retreating greenette as Eraser blinked. It took a second before the floor erupted. Gargantuan spikes protruded from the ground and Deku let out a small yell of pain. He and the 10th ranking hero were the only ones caught in the attack, but Ryukyu had received more damage. Her side had been pierced with the attempt to save her wings as she clenched the blood-soaked hero suit. It only got worse when Overhaul's underling landed nearby the leader and the man grumbled to himself. He pulled a small box out and counted the 4 bullets before pocketing the item once more. A hive-covered hand grabbed his follower's face and the sound of cracking glass splintered the air. A large plume of excess energy erupted from Overhaul as black and purple lighting discharge broke out. The human-shaped figure in the dust cloud distorted as an arm tore through the back before the second followed. The 6-limbed monstrosity clambered forward like an unruly animal before locking his blood-lusting eyes on his target. Give it back. Eraser and many other heroes lay there unable to move as the Chrono used his quirk to slow down their perception of time. The pros were moving slower than a snail's pace because of it. Leaving Izuku to stare at the creature, he destroyed himself and his underling, and then fused them together. The Viridian eyes noticed that not only had his opponent become more powerful, the injuries previously sustained had also disappeared. That's just too bad, hero. If you don't give back what's mine, then it's not just Lemillion's quirk being gone for good. Wait, no, Mirio. Night-Eye tightened his hug to the blonde boy and Iri started to tear up. The corner of her eyes glistened with tears that couldn't fall. Overhaul glared at the kid who stood between him and his target. Now you will all die. The inhuman man crashed forward, tearing through the rocks as he readied to grab at Iri. However, a rock was thrown in his direction which shattered as Overhaul disintegrated the inanimate object to nothing but shards. Ew. Another boulder came crashing forward as Izuku aimed them in his enemy's direction, and once again the process repeated. I still can't read his movements. Here, a rain of car-sized bolts came crashing down as Izuku jumped out of the way. He glanced up to see that Ryukyu had transformed with her 2 classmates on her back. The 2 girls were working together as Sir Nine-Eye ran forward and instructed Izuku to retreat. With no hesitation, the greenette ran off. Mirio-senpai, Iri, let's get out of here. He kicked down the wall and showed the way as the injured student hobbled over the debris. Iri's hands were coated with blood as she horrifyingly looked down at them and the tears gently flowed. I'm sorry, Night-Eye. The 10th hero's yell caused the trio to turn around and time seemed to slow down, like a shock of lightning traveling up their veins. The children witnessed the sight of Sir's lower body being crushed by a boulder. There was a spike through the pro's arm which halted the foreseeing hero enough to be caught under the fire of his own side. It was a stomach-clenching sight, and anger pulsed almost violently through Izuku's body. Smash! Overhaul dodged the blow, but the leader's eyes widened at the sudden dramatic change in power. Was he holding back? The green lightning cracked threateningly around Izuku's body as he struggled to control the output. Power was making the air itself pulse like a heartbeat as it flowed to every cell of the greenette's body. I can move. Muscles tense and legs bent. Izuku stood in a fighting stance. My whole body feels numb, with his teeth grit and fists clenched. The glowing viridian pupils locked on target. But I can move. One for all. The quirk once again pulsated through his body, and the discharge heavily lashed out as Izuku faced Overhaul. 20%. Spikes barbarically tore their way forward as the Yakuza sent the attack to claim his enemy's life. Izuku slammed his iron soles into the ground before using his accelerating momentum to carry his body upward. The opponent copied and slammed a hand to the floor. A single cement cylinder rose up like the undead and carried the leader toward the ceiling. Izuku followed without hesitation, letting his body's force guide him upward toward the top, with his restrictor gloves disintegrating under the rise in power. The scarred hands clenched, rising higher and higher. The greenette analyzed the situation. He wants Eri, even if he dies. I have to stop him now, rotating so his weaponized feet dented the metal vents and pipes. Izuku twisted his body midair to aim an axe kick down. His streamlined body accelerated toward his target with a Manchester smash. The crescent-shaped kick echoed out as it thudded against Overhaul's skull, but it wasn't enough. How? A cement spike launched out and, like a homing missile, caused blood to splatter upward, staining the greenette red. Geez, even if I can repair myself, it still hurts when I break apart. With concrete spears stuck to his ankle and forearm, Izuku crouched down, panting for his life. If the floor hadn't given way, he would have died. Kid. The greenette looked up to see Ryukyu swooping down with rocks in her arms. She and the girls once again made bolts and boulders rain down as Izuku took the opportunity to catch his breath properly. It's not over just yet. Overhaul created a mouth on his hand and his voice rang out. Eri, come back. Someone else is about to die because of you. The sudden uncomfortable silence made the greenette angry, and it only piled higher as the child came shakingly out of the shadows below. No, please. I'll come back. Put everyone back to how they were before. For her to say something like that. See, it's easier to hurt yourself than others, isn't it? Izuku's teeth ground hard against themselves as he watched the girl say she was willing to go back to the pain as long as others don't get hurt. I wonder if this was how Mom felt. A smile appeared on the greenette's face at the random thought, and he quickly pulled out the spikes from his body. Eri, don't say that, whether you like it or not. I'm going to save you. He grinned down from where he was on the platform at the child as he got into a fighting stance. No one's going to die on my watch. Charging forward, Izuku let out a battle cry as he ran. At that second, the Dragoon hero Ryukyu came crashing in feet first and knocked the Yakuza to the floor. Yanagi picked up Eri as Kodai went for Night Eye, using her quirk to shrink the concrete boulder that crushed the man waist down. Get out of my way. The greenette watched in horror as the 10th hero's left leg completely erupted from her body, but he didn't think about it. Stop him. Sir Night Eye held a hand out toward the accelerating child and whispered so that only Eri could hear. Both he and I are going to die. Why? Tears pooled out of Eri's ruby-red eyes as she turned to look at the first year throwing himself at his opponent. One touch and he's going to die. Time seemed to slow down as Izuku's outstretched hand was about to make contact with Overhaul's body. Stop. At the same time, the Yakuza leader's hand was mere millimeters away from the greenette's back. Please. The two viciously glared at each other and Eri stood up. I don't want to kill anyone. Stop. Her shriek caught Overhaul's attention for a single second, but it was more than enough time as Izuku kicked his iron soul into the floor. His body twisted like a drill as he landed the punch and rotated into a roundhouse kick. Ugh. Overhaul's hand missed and landed on Izuku's arm instead. The limb disappeared and the greenette winced at his shoulder in pain. The hand then aimed for the greenette's neck, and the freckled boy could swear he saw his life flash before his eyes. One for all crackled as the boy held his breath. But nothing happened. The Yakuza's glare scanned the people below and settled on Aizawa, who was still slow-moving. Damn it. The Yakuza sighed but relaxed, using one of the monstrous arms that grew from his back. Overhaul grabbed Izuku by the torso and used the other to grab the flailing legs. His third normal hand reattached to the greenette's neck and the enemy grinned, moving closer to the edge. The Yakuza leader held the boy out for all to see. He was patiently waiting for the one homeroom teacher's quirk time to run out. It's over. The body frantically swayed against the lock on his body, but it only served to further irritate the captor. Stop moving, brat. Arg. Izuku felt his leg bend backward as Overhaul broke the limbs. The pain and ridiculous blood loss was making Izuku dizzy, but he kept trying to smile. After all, He didn't want Eri, who was all the way on the ground, to see him frown. The smile annoyed the Yakuza, however, as the man glanced down at the keystone to all his plans. It's over. It's not over. Ryukyu came sweeping down from above with her legs still dripping blood, but Overhaul held up a gun. He pointed it at the hero and Izuku yelled out, "Stay back. It's the quirk erasing bullet." His voice halted the Dragoon hero, who paused her flight, and Overhaul let out a maniacal laugh. Aizawa blinked and quickly rubbed out the blood from his eyes. It works. Oh. This is the power Eri's body has. These bullets. He smiled from underneath the beak mask as his eyes slanted with superiority. The Yakuza will be the rulers of the underworld yet again. I think not. Divided by ARGH. Izuku fell to the floor as the heroes not only saw Overhaul, but Shigaraki's hand coming out of a portal. Instinct drove Ryukyu once again to swoop in to try and save the greenette, but the gun now held in Shigaraki's gloved hand made her halt. The League of Villains suddenly poured out of the portal, and Toga immediately hopped over at the bleeding Izuku. Yes, you are so beautiful when covered in delicious blood, Izuku. The air became silent as no one knew what to do. Ryukyu couldn't move with the gun pointed toward her, and all the other heroes were too far down to help. Izuku was missing an arm and bleeding out. The injuries were making the boy lightheaded as the League stood around Overhaul. Aizawa had gone with an emotion-based decision again by choosing to set his quirk on the Yakuza, which rendered the man quirkless. Heroes are annoying, but Shigaraki lifted a hand to signal Mr. Compress to walk forward. You Yakuza currently piss me off more. With a touch, the monstrosity on Overhaul's back became marbles, leaving the leader more human-like as he bled. The heavy stench of iron which already stained the air only concentrated as Toga skipped away from the greenette. I want one too. She smiled and gave a joking curtsy to the man held still by Twice's clones of Spinner, holding up a knife. She licked the silver surface with a glare at the man. You shouldn't have killed him. Spinner liked Mr. Staney as much as I did. Now, she stabbed the man's left arm and twisted her blade against the bone. Blood and flesh were playfully gorged out as she finally drilled through the bone. Hehe, so much blood. But I'm only keeping it because I have to. I bet your blood tastes disgusting. Shigaraki then grabbed the final arm Overhaul had as Aizawa couldn't help but blink again. Let's see. The villain looked down to face Eri before grinning at the Yakuza. His free hand grabbed the box in Overhaul's jacket. The heroes have the girl and I have the bullets. He grinned sadistically as his 4 fingers around Overhaul's arm became 5. Arg, how does it feel to have your life's work get stripped before your eyes? The Yakuza member couldn't say anything. With his arms gone, he was basically quirkless, and if he couldn't use his power, then the true leader of the Shy Hasekai would remain in a coma forever. Damn it. It finally sunk in as Shigaraki's words were true. Even if Eri was taken by the heroes and the League had the bullets, there was a small chance the Yakuza could still survive. However, with his quirk taken away, Eri's grandfather had no chance of waking up, since it was Chisaki's Overhaul quirk that put him in that comatose state in the first place. The Yakuza really had no chance of reviving ever again. Their potential to grow and the one who held them all together were now gone from their grasp. The Yakuza were done for. Now, Shigaraki finished laughing at Overhaul's suffering and turned to the bleeding out greenette. As annoying as you are, I can't disregard what Master saw in you. He smiled as he instructed Twice to pick up the dying boy. And this works out for me too. Shigaraki glanced at Izuku, who was on the verge of passing out, and grinned at the heroes below. We're taking him with us again. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed it. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We The Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We The Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video. So goodbye and have a divine day.